May 24th, 1938.
When you were growing up, was racing at all something that was done in the neighborhood?
There were a few small tracks, and some of the fellows I knew liked racing, and I went to a couple of races and thought I'd like to try it. So I was only 17 years old, and I had to have my mother go to the notary to get a waiver for me to be able to race when I ran my first one at West Sheridan Speedway. It was on Stone Quarry Road off of Route 60 in Fredonia, and I believe it was owned by R.T. Weeks Paving Company, and it was on the north side of Stone Quarry Road up there at his place, and it was on kind of a side hill. It ran, the straightaways were up and down hill, and the curves were at the bottom and the top. I can remember one race there. This would have been the first day that I raced. Being a greenhorn, they put me in the front on an Australian pursuit race, and I was determined I would not be passed, and I went right off the end of the track on the first turn.
What, just for the camera, what's an Australian pursuit race?
It's a single file race, and if you get past, you're out of the race. Started with 20, and then I changed to 71.
So V20 was your first car?
Yes.
You had a 71 Vic. 71. So that was your main number?
Yes.
It says Vic 77.
Okay. I had that for a while, I guess. To start with, it was kind of a soft track. We'd even have to shift down just to get through the soft spots on the lower end of it. But it turned out to be a very nice dirt track to race on. Can you
kind of visualize a lap around?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Go ahead.
The starting flag by the grandstand side of the track was on a very slight downhill slope, and the first and second turns were at the lower end of the hill, and that was the part that was kind of soggy for the first few times we raced, and he kept putting more fill in. And then going around the top, the third and fourth turns were on the top, and it was set in a clearing there, kind of wooded around the outside a little. I think most of them were about a quarter mile. I believe we raced Saturday at one track and then Sunday at another. A fellow by the name of Don Drummond opened a track in Dunkirk across from Shorewood Country Club. It was called Motordrome Speedway. I ran there a few times, and we'd race Saturday nights there and then go up to Vans and race Sunday afternoons.
So they had lights out in the Motordrome? Okay.
Yeah. In a heat race?
Yeah.
10 cars, maybe. They probably ran 5 or 6 heats and maybe 1 or 2 semifinals, and then the final feature race, which was usually a 25-lap race unless it was a special holiday. Yeah, we raced for the money for sure. $2, $4, and $6. Where I should have reversed that, because the 6 for first place, 4 for second, and 2 for third.
And that's a feature?
No, the feature race might have paid $20 or $25 for first place. He had a bleacher type grandstand there. I don't know, you could probably get 100, 150 people watching the races. Between 4 and 1.
4 and 1, yeah.
Going down the hill. The bleachers were on the south side of the track. Well, one of the money winners was Harold Lathrop. He drove a Studebaker, and he was a gentleman driver and a good driver. But I had a lot of respect for him. We always were a little suspicious that his car might have been hotter than some of the rest of ours.
Not a lot of rules in these races?
Not really. About most everybody would weld the spider gears in the rear end to lock the wheels, so both of them are driving. and you might shave a little weight off of the flywheel. I think I took 10 pounds off the flywheel. And that was about all they would allow. But they never inspected you, so a few people might have done a little more than that. Willie Gadewaltz was a name, I remember. Art Till, Mike Egan. He was called Cigar Egan. Maybe you've heard that before. Lampheres. Well, there was one time it kind of got my dad shook up a little bit because I was kind of in the pole position, being a latecomer, and they put the guys up front because the ones that are better, they kind of put them in the back instead of like they do today. You really try to get that pole position. But I was in a race and went around, it might have been on the first lap, and the second turn, bumped somebody, and I rolled over, and I was back on my wheels, laying across the seat, and the top of my car was crushed down to the center of the steering wheel, and I felt something warm, and I thought I was bleeding, but it was the radiator of the car sitting on top of me.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, there wasn't a caution flag in single file racing. You try to get around the wrecks and keep on going. They used to have the powder puff in the grandparents' races and such once in a while.
Oh, did they?
Or they had hot dog races.
What was that?
You'd run a lap and stop and eat a hot dog and drink a bottle of pop and then get back in. I think it was halfway through the race where you'd have to stop and eat your hot dog.
So you literally get out of the car?
Oh yeah, you got out of the car, went and grabbed your hot dog and pop, and got back in.
Oh my gosh.
For quite a while, I thought I'd never carried a checkered flag around and was always finishing second, but when I went through my memorabilia, I found one envelope that was a first place finish down at Motordrome Speedway. It was either a Plymouth or Dodge.
What year?
Around a 46, the first car I raced with at Sheridan was a four-door Plymouth. It was one that I'd had a little fender bender with, and my dad replaced it, so I turned it into a stock car when I first started driving. I went through 6 cars in 2 years. I got to be a pretty good welder. My uncle, Dick Crandall, ran the Texaco garage in Casadega, and his son, well, my cousin, was part of my pit crew, and we'd do the car repairs there. So if we had to change an engine after a Saturday race, we'd go up there and change the engine and race Sunday afternoon, work all night. My pit crew was my cousin Jerry Crandall, whose father owned the Texaco station, and then Ray Bulger. Those were most consistent, my pit crew. There was a Donnie Brooks that helped me out some of the time, too.
You crawl into the car. What did you have on? Seatbelts?
Okay.
Seat? What was that like?
We used a airplane seat belt, just hooked at both ends, and it's a strap across your lap, and it had a flip lever on it that you could release it. And my helmet was a football helmet. And it wasn't until after the first year or so of racing that I actually bought a Cromwell crash helmet. And of course that wouldn't have even been legal today.
What kind of seat did you have?
I think we took a bucket seat out of an old sports coupe or something to weld in there. Yeah. A holiday race, and it was a 75-lap feature race, and I had qualified, so I got into it, and I was doing very well. I was running about second position, and that's the best I would have ever run for my whole career. And coming up the back straightaway on either the next to the last lap or the last lap, another driver forced me into a car that was sitting in the infield, spun out, and it took the front end out of my car, and I never finished that race. But there was some unsportsmanlike antics going on occasionally. I loved race day. I always looked forward to it, and after a race, I get out on the road, and I was driving pretty good and abiding by all the speed limits. But when it got closer and closer to the end of the week, towards race day, I began to want to push it. And always getting ready for the Sunday race, I guess. And when I got on that track and that green flag went down, nothing mattered. You just did what you could do and hope for the best. I was known at Van Speedway as Gentleman Vic Richardson, because I didn't really bowl my way through all of the time, and I just was out there for fun, and I had it.
Would you do it again?
I loved it. Yeah.